I've started seeing the signs, small pieces of information that, when brought together, paint us a clear, sinister picture. I want to share the signs with you today and give you another weekly update of news on the transformation that Russia is undergoing into a state of complete totalitarianism. Howdy, friends. My name is Konstantin. Welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. Welcome to the weekend. I give you crazy news update straight out of the mad circus that Russia has unfortunately become. But first things first. There is no such absurdity these days that could not be realized in Russia. Please remember that. And the news? I call them crazy news from Russia. The news of Russia that matter and that you will not find in any mainstream media. Now let's jump straight to the news. Let me start with positive news. I want to be remembered as the giver of positive news about Russia. How about that? Inside Russia is the positive corner of the internet. Some Russians will have a marvelous life now. They live with a bridge. Did you not? This is the real headline from TASS, Russia's largest propaganda agency. Restoration of the bridge destroyed 3 years ago will begin in Transbaikalia. Well, there was obviously a bridge that fell apart, fell down 3 years ago, and people have been waiting until the works on restoration would start. And now, Prosecutor General of Russian Federation, Igor Krasnov, was visiting the region, I guess on a business trip, and he paid his attention to the bridge. Someone must have complained to him. And they plan to start the work by the end of 2025. They haven't started yet, but they plan on starting it by the end of this year. Ah, Russia, the land of miracles, my friends. Somehow, it has plenty of funds to build rockets, but it doesn't have funds for those people who actually pay the state to build rockets. Let's look at a rocket called X-101, a new Russian long-range missile cruising rocket, and its sibling X-102, nuclear missile rocket. According to the Forbes, the missile cost about $13 million to produce, about 1 billion rubles. 10 bridges, 10 bridges, 10 bridges, one rocket costs as much as 10 bridges to produce. The rumors have it that Russia produces 30 rockets of the kind every month. So if Russia stopped producing rockets X-101 just for 1 month, it could build 300 bridges, just like the Amazar bridge. Instead, Russia keeps on building rockets. That's right. Who needs bridges? Everyone needs rockets in Russia, right? Another piece of news is positive. Also positive. I try to give you as many positive news as possible. And it's a perfect example how Russian state cares for Russian people. The state provides for Russian people, and it gives a lot for free. I mean, don't you love that stuff? Freebies. You know, some people in the West, they don't like capitalism. My daughter Oля is a university student in Philadelphia, And she told me a story that they have a Marxist club, a small marginalized group of students that somehow have crazy ideas about Marxism, how capitalism is bad and Marxism is good. And Oля was even invited to an event of this group. Well, Oля is pretty knowledgeable about Marxism. She grew up in Russia, after all, you know. She grew up in Putin's Russia. So she started challenging members of that Marxist group with questions. And instead of giving her answers, obviously they cannot give answers, they started calling her a capitalist pig. Something like that. Well, I have a pretty good idea for this wonderful young Marxists of Philadelphia. They need to be rounded up and sent to Russia. That's what they're propagating, okay? So Russian state would give them a lot of things for free, courtesy of the state, you know? And the first thing they would receive would be a messenger. The replacement of all other messengers that Russians are currently using, the Viber, WhatsApp, Telegram, Facebook Messenger, anything you can think of. Starting September 1st, all smartphones in Russia must be equipped with pre-installed messenger called VK Max. Russian parliament has just anonymously approved a law on the pre-installation of this state-owned national, they call it the national messenger, on all devices sold in Russia. Imagine that. It's wonderful. This news just appeared a couple weeks ago about this development of this new messenger, and bada bing, bada boom, already starting September 1st, it's being installed on all the devices. That's how Russian state works and Russian propaganda. Well, mandatory uploads for the purpose of increased security, of course. Well, why else? The messenger that was designed by the KGB, well, IT specialists that work for the KGB, will be installed onto all smartphones. Imagine wonderful mobile app on your telephone that tracks all your activities online, monitors your movements, physical movements, taps into other apps that are installed on your telephone, keeps an eye on your bank accounts, on spendings, and the money you receive, and it's free. You don't have to pay for that. Huh? How do you like that? And I think Russian people will start feeling so much safer starting September 1st with that messenger. And those Marxists of Philadelphia, I'm sure that feel right at home with that messenger. Well, more positive news. The Russians are about to start reading more books and exercise more. Isn't that wonderful? Great. Why is that so? What will make them? It's simple. They will simply have more free time now. Known gadget time for them. So, lots of free time. On June 12th, Russians celebrated the Independence Day. National holiday, comes once a year, and Russians are supposed to feel proud on that day. And they probably do, for some odd reason, I don't know. This Independence Day, the residents of every fifth province in Russia faced mobile internet blackouts. The problem with access to mobile networks were recorded in 19 provinces. And in many places, the blackouts also included regular mobile communications blackouts, not just internet, but you couldn't make a call either. Krasnoyarsk province, Republic of Khakassia, Tyumen, Krasnodar, Murmansk, Omsk provinces, Rostov province. The authorities reported that the blackouts were related to ensuring, that's right, security. For example, Murmansk Governor Andrei Chibis said temporary restrictions on mobile internet and cellular communications are possible for your safety during the festivities. I can't argue with that, can you? The governor of Omsk, Vitaly Hatsenko, said the current situation primarily concerns the resolution of our old security issues. And this is the most important thing right now. Of course, the security issues. We all remember what happened on June 1st with the security issues, right? The birds flew from Ukraine. Well, there's one little thing that kind of, I'm not even sure if I need to mention it to you or not, but in Rostov, I know for the fact, in Rostov, they shut down mobile internet almost every night for security issues, of course. And Russian people, they started complaining. I mean, they pay for internet and do not receive service. That's not right. Well, they went and made complaints, and the official answer from their telecom providers, I know at least 2 cases, was not going to refund you any money. Live with it. Of course, for the security, insurance of the security, of course, we can live with that. No problem, you know. Pay for the service that you don't get, just live with it. The governors of the 2 provinces proved again that in Russia the interests of the state are above the interests of the people. Well, that's how it works, Putin's Russia 2025. And the next piece of news is about Russian President Vladimir Putin. He said that he sees the meaning of Russia's Independence Day. Yeah, I was wondering, because it's kind of nothing happened on June 12th, and then they announced it the Independence Day. But that was before. Now I know, and now everyone knows. Putin announced that the meaning of this holiday is in the immortality of Russian people. Yeah, that's easy. The immortality of Russian people. That's all. I don't get it. Something's wrong here. Immortality? How does the immortality go with mobilizing Russian men in hundreds of thousands and sending them to sow and reap death? How about those hundreds of thousands of men who killed others and were killed themselves? Where's immortality in that? Well, Vladimir Putin ended, he announced this immortality as a meaning of this Russia's Independence Day. He announced it at a conference called The Time of Heroes. And he was having conversations with soldiers who came back from the front lines. And then he ended the meeting with the participants, with the soldiers, with 3 cheers in honor of the participants of the special military operation. That's how they call the war and more. 3 cheers. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Cheering the immortals that are kind of mortals now. How ironic. Let's move on to the next piece of news, and that's going to be about the annual International Economic Forum that is coming to St. Petersburg fairly soon. That's an annual event, the biggest Russian economic forum. It used to be fairly big, and different leaders and different participants came from all over the world, including Europe, including the United States. But it's a little different now, okay? Um, how different? Well, it's more for entertaining purposes now. The prostitutes of St. Petersburg have prepared a list of the best places in St. Petersburg for meetings with wealthy forum participants. They market their services on all social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. The text that you're seeing right here says, your mother gave you beauty, your father gave you character, and you give your sweetness, well, a little different word, to a wealthy Russian participant of St. Petersburg International Economic Forum to live your best rich life. Oh, brilliant. Do you know what the main topics will be for discussion at the forum this year? Family values and the Russian world values. You know, Russia being the last bastion of goodness and Christian values and so forth. Very typical, very typical. They will preach family values at daytime and they'll do other things at nighttime. Putin's Russia for you, through the looking glass. Let's move to the next news. Pretty serious warning Russia is sending to the United States. No, I kid you not. I mean, Russia is a big, serious, powerful country. That's what Russia thinks, and it can send warnings. I learned it from the Russian news. Russia warned the United States of America 2 years ago that Mexico might want California back. The message is, while California is torn apart by the protests, the Aztlan movement is gaining strength again, echoing old calls for the northern homeland associated with the Aztecs. If I were you, Americans, I would listen. Coming from Russia, you know. Oh. Back in March 2023, a couple years ago, the Secretary of Russia's Security Council, Nikolai Patrushev, you know, used to be the great cardinal of Russian politics, warned before one of the democratic summits led by the United States of America that Russians can be sure that sooner or later the southern neighbors of the United States will regain the territories stolen from them. I quote, the United States have become a great power through cynical actions of territorial conquest, exploitation of resources, profiteering from the suffering of other countries. However, they remain a patchwork quilt and that can easily break. It is possible that the global south will move towards Mexico, the land that the Americans captured in 1848. More than 2 million square kilometers, I unquote Dmitry Patrushev. Wow, that's quite a bold statement, you know. Kind of makes me think, who is behind the Californian protests, riots, I don't know, whatever it is, lawlessness that is happening in California right now, in some places. Is that just citizens came out, or perhaps some ties to Russia and Patrushev? I hope that the district attorney and his team will investigate thoroughly and will follow the money trail, because you can hide many things, but you cannot hide the money. And I'm sure Tenet Media could be of help getting how things are organized between Russian state and American companies. Another piece of news. Imagine a moving picture. Imagine a soldier takes a grenade launcher, prepares it, you know, shoots, and blows up a house and starts kind of celebrating in joy. He gets excited about it like he did something good. Regular residential 2-story house, regular people live there. Did you imagine? Well, it really happened. The soldier was Russian, a sergeant in Russian uniform, and he was in the middle of a Russian town called Sudzha. You know, the town which was captured and held by the Ukrainians for over half a year. A Russian soldier blows up in a Russian house in a Russian town for fun. I have a video of him doing that, but I don't dare to post it here on YouTube to show it to you here because YouTube would ban me. So I am going to place it right after the end of the live stream onto my Telegram channel. You want to check it out, please go to Telegram of Inside Russia. I'm going to leave the links down below. So the reason we learned of the accident, because it was filmed in details. You can see the face of the sergeant. You can see his emotions. They show the explosion, everything. And we know because the video, I don't know how smart they are, but they actually, whoever filmed it, uploaded onto social media, and it went viral. You know, millions of Russians watched it. Blew up on all social networks. The serviceman was identified as sergeant of the 158th Military Brigade. And Kursk interim governor Alexander Hinstein watched the video and got pretty angry. He contacted the military authorities and the military prosecutor's office. It happened a few weeks ago, and this past week, the governor informed everyone that the justice prevailed. The sergeant who fired the grenade launcher in Sudzha at the house this past week died in a car accident. Can you imagine? Justice prevailed. I don't make this stuff up. Okay, it's happening in Russia as I speak. Russia is the land of looking through the glass, through the looking glass. Now, the good Hinstein didn't give us any details of what happened in the car accident. Was the car accident the military police or the KGB or perhaps the prosecutor's office? How that accident was called? That'd be nice to know. The sergeant must have fell out of the window during a chase. You know, while someone was pursuing him, and he just kind of fell out of the window. The job well done. That's how justice prevails in Russia. The next piece of news is hilarious. Russian parliament proposed to recognize, I mean, this is so insane. If you're standing somewhere, you'd better sit down, because it's pretty amazing. The Russian parliament made an official bill, okay? Proposed the bill to recognize this right here. The Extremist logo. Yes, the French automaker Renault that produces cars and machinery. Russian parliament wants to make this sign of terrorism and extremism. According to the authors of the bill, Renault's logo resembles fascist symbols. Why? Because Renault has offered Ukraine military help. It offered to build a drone factory in Ukraine, in the country. And if the bill is passed, all drivers and owners of Renault cars may face fines or imprisonment. I don't call them crazy news for nothing, you know? Reno, what have you done, you fascists? Before moving to the next news, I would like to take this opportunity to take a sip of this wonderful English breakfast tea. No, I'm not sponsored by it. It's just happens to be my favorite drink, and I would like to thank you. Thank you, everyone who's watching right now. Thank you for being part of the community of Inside Russia. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your messages, good words, wishes. Thank you for praying along with me and for me, and thank you for sending me love. You know, your support shows me that you value my work highly. It inspires, and I promise you that even though I'm demonetized, not making any money from this channel, from Google, I will continue going in front of the camera every single day and telling you the truth. Thank you so very much. Now, I would like to give you a few economic news. I like those. I'm an economist by trade, so I can't really say it's my hobby, but I like it to the point where I just like studying it. The next few news are about Russian economy, and the first one comes from the High Court of England and Wales. Well, it comes from the foreign land, but it affects Russia directly. The High Court has declared loss of 147 aircraft and 16 aircraft engines remaining in Russia since March of 2022. I remind you, Russian airlines, they just refused to return the airplanes, Boeings and Airbuses, to Western leasing companies. Now the decision has been made. Insurance companies are ordered to pay a record $4.5 billion to lessors. That amount exceeds compensation made after the terrorist attack in New York on September 11, 2001. Now, this is a milestone decision for the whole business world. Might as well be the last nail in coffin's lid of Russia's future. All Western companies, or most Western companies, I should say, have left Russia. All the investors have left Russia. Russians, once in a while, make a news hype about, Western companies plan to come back to Russia. But it's just hype. Lies, not true. You know why? Who will return? Investments is what, drives economic growth. Foreign investments are crucial for the country. But tell me, what kind of foreign investments would come to Russia after this decision? And I mean, this decision is the last one in a series of decisions. What a crazy person make a decision to bet on investing millions, hundreds of millions, sometimes billions of dollars to build something in Russia that the state simply steals from you. And then, no insurance companies will ever insure property or equipment, machinery, whatever in Russia. This is it. This is done deal. This decision indicates us one more time that Russia is done economically for decades to come. The next piece of news comes from the USA, and it also directly concerns Russia. The United States rejected a proposal to lower the ceiling of oil prices to $45 per barrel. That information is according to the Bloomberg. This reduces the chances of new sanctions being imposed at the G7 summit that is coming up in Canada in June. That could significantly reduce Russia's budget revenues if it was accepted, this new package. So now it's not going to be accepted, and Russian budget will say hello. Vladimir Putin will say hello. And Vladimir Putin will say thank you to Donald Trump and the administration. Again, this new package could be accepted, and the sanctions could be tightened, made strict, more strict. Okay, it could reduce Russia's financial might, well, whatever is left of it. But the USA solely is not letting it happen. Folks, please help me out here. I don't really know what the hell is going on. More and more, it looks like the USA is acting as Russia's agent, helping out Russia. Is it just me noticing, or I'm wrong on the case? You know, this is a very sensitive issue, and I cannot accuse the United States of doing wrong things just like because I think so. I've studied, I've looked from different angles, and I don't have a reasonable explanation. Please help me out here. Am I the only one seeing that? Because I'm kind of going crazy here thinking about it. The next piece of news, something I want to show you. I like showing more than telling. Let's look at what Vladimir Baglayev, the CEO of Cherepovets Foundry and Mechanical Plant, says about the serious crisis of non-payments in Russian equipment manufacturing industry. But first of all, who is the guy? Is he real? Is he legit? Because now there are so many fakes. Well, I have checked. He is real. He is legit. He a well-known businessman in the city of Cherepovets, and he is truly the CEO of Cherepovets Foundry and Mechanical Plant. And he speaks publicly. He came out and made a speech, pretty important speech. And he seems very angry in his speech. Let's check this out. Well, he's basically saying that not a very good situation in Russia's manufacturing industry. He complains that since Russian laws prohibit withholding wages, to pay wages late, and there's nothing left to pay workers at many factories, bankruptcy and closure of production remain the only way out. Most manufacturing companies are on the brink of bankruptcies, and if the situation doesn't improve in the coming months, a series of domino-style bankruptcies will begin. Not too many comments on my side here. That's exactly what I've been saying for the past 3 years. I forecasted a lot this situation. Now it's coming not from me, but from the experts on the ground. The domino effect. I keep on hearing this word more and more. The domino effect. The banks, the enterprises in the manufacturing industries, the coal companies, transport companies, the domino effect. Okie dokie. The next piece of news is also positive. One simple thought for you. Well, some businesses, right? They gotta be doing. Some businesses gotta be doing well. It's not just doom and gloom, right? It can't be. In any situation, there's always someone who takes advantage of the situation. So, what is this? Who is feeling all right? We know that the coal company is not feeling great. Oil companies, no. The banks in trouble. The pulp and paper industry, big trouble. Car manufacturers in trouble. you name it, everyone's in trouble. But there's one industry that is actually doing great. I found this industry. It is funeral companies. Funeral companies in Russia have earned a record 40 billion rubles in 4 months of 2025. Someone is doing well. Something has caused a boom in the funeral service market. Something that state doesn't really say anything about. I wonder what it is. From January to April, the funeral companies earned 39.5 billion rubles, which is 12.7% more than last year-to-year basis. And by the way, 2024 was another record-breaking year. So they're doing much better from starting 2022. Anyway, the Kommersant newspaper calculated, this is the groundbreaking number for them. It's calculated based on the data that came from Rosstat. The largest incomes were shown by the funeral organizations in St. Petersburg, then in Moscow, then Krasnodar, then Tatarstan, then Sverdlovsk provinces. Well, at least we can exhale. So it's all not doom and gloom in Russia. We found someone who's doing fantastic, celebrating, corking champagne, making good money. More economic news for you. Well, fiscal news. This is a good one. In Moscow, a man was fined 5,000 rubles for defacing someone else's last name in a group chat in Telegram. A woman with the last name of Derma appealed to the state prosecutor's office so that her interlocutor would be punished. He distorted her name, so it didn't sound that well. The man admitted his guilt in court, and he explained that he had already apologized to the woman, to the victim. He also said that it wasn't really him, but his telephone auto-correction feature, and he didn't notice how it corrected the name wrongly, but he changed it, corrected it, once he saw the mistake. So it was the phone to blame. And after the man publicly apologized, the woman dropped the charges. That was satisfactory for her. But the state did not drop the charges. And the state fined the man 5,000 rubles, which is around $70 these days in today's exchange rate. It's a small fine, but you know what? You might ask me, what's the big deal? 5,000 rubles, around $70. Come on. Why has it made to your news report today, Konstantin? This, to me, is a small fine, indeed, but it is a huge sign what the Russian state is doing right now. Remember, I forecasted some time ago, in January, even before that, that Russian state would intensify finding both finding more fines with both people and businesses alike. Fining everyone as much as they can, justly and unjustly. Well, this is happening. This is a good example. This is one of those small pieces of puzzle when many put together, they paint you a big picture of what's happening. An interesting report, inside report, came from the Ministry of Economic Development. I'd like to share with you and talk about a little bit. It's serious stuff, okay? And that's something that you will not find anywhere in the Russian news, official news. This is exclusive to Inside Russia. The internal report prepared in May 2025, a very fresh one, in the Ministry of Economic Development, tells us that the government is discussing a strategy to reduce the burden on the federal budget through the natural folding of small towns. The towns with population of up to 30,000 people, primarily in central Russia, the Urals and Siberia regions, they need to cease to exist. Not through official liquidation of the towns. Russian history already saw that happened once. Nikita Khrushchev started liquidating villages, and that led to shortages of food production, incredible food production. So they're acting softer these days. They don't liquidate, just remove people from towns, but they plan to reduce and to wash away the infrastructure. So people will find it not comfortable to live there. 4 methods will be used, and that's in the paper. Number 1, hospitals will not be upgraded and therapists will not be hired. Number 2, capital repairs of schools, housing, utility facilities, power plants, water treatment plants, and roads will be frozen. Number 3, transport schemes will be reformatted, so bus routes will be shortened and made less convenient. And number 4, young people will be offered social relocation packages, hidden incentives to move out of such towns into bigger cities. Officially, nothing is being said. Of course, no one. This is a very inside information. No one will say anything about that in the Russian news. But in internal correspondences, they say something like, to reduce the consumption density for inefficient places of residence, to form sustainable urban hubs through voluntarily relocation. This is not Khrushchev's liquidation of villages, this is Excel spreadsheets. It's just, it won't be profitable for people to stay in towns. The towns will die on their own. And the pilot regions have been identified. They are Kostroma, Kurgan, Buryatia, and northwest of Saratov province. Do I believe this is a true document? After all, it's unofficial. I absolutely do. They know the economic tsunami is consuming Russia, and they're trying to do something about it. They are cutting costs in any way possible. They have built a system based on the federal budget spendings and subsidies where everything, literally everything, is paid from the federal budget. And everyone, well, not everyone yet, but the tens of millions of Russian people, they are employees of the state. So they get paid from the state. And now they're trying to cut costs in any way possible. In the science of economics, what they're doing is called, it has a very clear name. It's called the economy of scale. It's a cost advantage of higher populated areas in this case. That doesn't surprise me a bit, because I understand they simply don't have many options. Perhaps we are not seeing another memo or a report circulating that says just, hey, you know what? A harsh one. Let's just liquidate towns. That's it. And these ones are proposing to let the towns die slowly. But now I will give you something to think about, and it'll just give you an understanding of yet another layer of Russian state. Now, the provinces of Kostroma, Kurgan, Buryatia, Saratov, they produced the highest number of the mobilized men and those who signed contracts with the Ministry of Defense on their own. in hundreds of thousands. They were taken or lured out of their towns. Most of them came from small towns and farms. They were lured to the front lines. And now the state is trying to liquidate those towns. Quite the plan, don't you think? Please let me know what you think about it in the comments below. The next news is also from the man complaining about the economic situation. And not just a Russian man. The man. Not a darn thing has been done. The supplier of the military defense ministry, Konstantin Lukin, this guy right here. He's real. He's not fake. Okay, so this fella, he is the CEO of Supertel. That's a large contractor for the Ministry of Defense. So he comes out and speaks publicly about the complete failure of import substitution in the military-industrial complex. In more than 3 years of the war against Ukraine, not a single thing has been done in the Russian defense industry regarding the import substitutions of the electronic component base, says Lukin. Speaking at the Digital Industry of Russia conference, the executive noted that at the moment, no one in the country produces the necessary components. So they need to be ordered or they need to be developed from scratch from the manufacturers. I quote, I've asked all the factories about, component base that needs to be replaced. And they quote me the best time is 2 years for production and the longest time is 5 years. And I need to order large batch right now with 100% down payment, end quote. According to Lukin, this is the same situation even with the simplest passive components, resistors and capacitors. And there are simply no more complex ones left in Russia, even imported ones. The Ministry of Defense imposes requirements of suppliers of military equipment for the import substitution of parts and then checks how they substitute the import. It appoints expertise, and then the experts are overloaded and they come in a month or so, they give you an order to replace your imported elements with the domestic ones. And we don't have the domestic ones. And they give it the order so firmly that the only option you have is to not do anything in principle, and you just cannot produce the products, end quote. It was a complicated news, but it is one more proof that there's a huge mess in Russian Ministry of Defense, Russian military industrial complex enterprises, and there's a failure of state programs of technological advancement. State control system, it just doesn't work. It's just another proof. Well, good. By the way, there will be many news like this. Russia is just erupting with news every single day. I have like 50 good news every day. If you want to keep up with news, if you want to know what's happening in Russia, then consider becoming Patreon. You can find 2 types of content there. First of all, every single day, 9 news that are important and that matter. I personally select them. The news that crucial to know about Russia, and you will not find them anywhere. And another piece of content I do is daily snippet, more than a news, less than a live stream. An idea that catches an eye, so to speak, and I, in unrehearsed, unprepared, unrehearsed, I just sit in front of a camera and talk about it for a few minutes. So if you want to know everything about Russia, didn't know where to look, now you know. Consider subscribing and becoming patrons. I'm going to place the link down below after this live stream ends. Thank you. The next piece of news is grand. It's ginormous. Russia aims at lunar energy. Yep, that's, told you, it's grand. Russia plans to develop a low-power nuclear power plant, believe it or not. Low-power nuclear power plant. On the moon! So that would provide energy for the power supply of future lunar base and to develop technologies for further space exploration. Whoa! Whoa! Konstantin, are you making this up? That's what I expect you to say. Konstantin, this is sheer nonsense. That's what I also expect you to say. But you know what? I'm not making this up. No, it is nonsense, yes, but check this out. Take me to the moon, oh, this is exciting. Take me to the moon, I'll be delighting. Na, 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 na. This statement was made by the first Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov. He noted that this project of designing, delivering, whatever, creating low-power nuclear power plant is considered as an important stage in the development of distant planetary territories. Manturov stressed that priority attention should be given to the moon and Venus before moving on to the more distant goal, Mars. Take me to the moon, take me to the Mars. When would Russia do that? By the year of 2035. Only 10 years from now. I read this like 10 times. I kind of, cleaned my eyes because I wanted to make sure. I fact checked like 4 times. Yes, Manturov did say that. Incredible. I wonder why this guy Manturov, the federal minister, thinks so small. He should be thinking big, big, real big. The moon? Venus? Come on, give me a break. Alpha Centauri by 2040. How about that for the goal, huh? Russia will pierce the void with a speed above the speed of light. How about that, huh? How? Well, easy. Russian Ministry of Education is launching a new state project called A Physicist in Every Village. Fascinating. Well, cool $1 trillion. Well, trillion rubles, whatever. A lot of money. Financing. And sure enough, in just 10 years or whatever, there will be a physicist in every Nobel Prize winner physicist in every Russian village. And they all get together and, they drink a little bit of vodka and they discover how to travel above the speed of light. Easy. How about that goal? Come on. If you're talking about by 2035, flying to the moon, building lunar plant, power plant, building lunar station, then going to Venus, then go explore further. Why didn't you come up with something more grand? Freaking Alpha Centauri, Andromeda. Heck, make me a Russian federal minister now. In just under 1 hour, I'll come up with a dozen grand news like that. The next piece of news comes from Tambov province, and that's actually very serious news. The locals decided to protect themselves from drones with help of prayers and icons. After the Ukrainian FPVs attacked Tambov gunpowder factory in the town of Katovsk for the 5th time since the beginning of the war, the locals finally realized that there was no reason to keep on hoping, on waiting for protection from the state, from the Putin, and they took the matter into their own hands. They understood that neither the Russian army, nor the regional security force, nor Rostech, which owns the powder factory, that's the Russia's military industrial complex, none of those can protect them. Although it is 400 kilometers, about 270 miles away, from border of Ukraine, the factory systematically gets attacked and the town is in danger. In order to save one of Russia's largest ammunition factories, the residents of Katovsk took local priests and the icon of the Mother of God of Vyshenskaya and made a procession of the cross by car. It is an Eastern Orthodox ceremony where the priests and the people walk with icons for very long distances with a certain goal they're asking God. The idea is to sacrifice and get rewarded. In our case, instead of walking, they actually drove. This is how the procession of the cross looked like. Check this out. Now, this is going to be a couple-minute long video, but a very interesting one, very informational. I want you to notice a few things here. First of all, look at who is praying behind the priests. It's 100% women. Many of you ask me how Russia is changing. Well, this is a new face of Russia, women. Where are men? It used to be like 50-50. And this is a local, the head of the administration, I think it's a mayor. And now, they have taken the icon, they drive around, so the icon protects, everything from the Ukrainian drones. Pay attention to the cars that they're driving. So this is one of the places where Russians live. Now, I want you to look at this car. This is a Lexus LX 600 or perhaps 500. Now, this car, these are the current prices for this car in Russia. From 15 million rubles to 21 million rubles. The exchange rate right now is about 80 rubles for $1. 15 million makes it about $200,000, and 23 million makes it about 26, 27, $270,000. $270,000. Right there. And the rest of the cars are very expensive as well. How these people who are public servants can afford this kind of cars? Are they personal cars or, work cars? Yeah, look at this. That's a lot of money right there on the road. Are the taxpayers paying for that? Or bribes or what? Would be nice to get an explanation, right? So I guess they're taking the icon to the places they don't want to be bombed by the Ukrainian drones. And now the priests make speech and, I guess, praise. And he thanks the authorities, the local authorities, and the local authorities thank the church. Again, look who is standing there, women, older women. Now, this is to me a very disturbing video. Forget about just women there. Forget about expensive cars. They can steal whatever they want from the taxpayers. I don't care. Forget about all that. These people are taking an icon and pray according to the Eastern Orthodox ceremony. They pray to God to protect them from Ukrainian drones. Well, I just imagine on the other side, Ukrainian families, regular people, not warmongers, not bloodthirsty vampires, just regular people who are being invaded. The war is being waged on them, not by them. And then they come, and they're also Christian, they're also Eastern Orthodox, they're also pray to the same God. And they come to churches and they pray for protection, for the Lord to defend them. I don't understand what this people in Russian churches, in the priests think. This has created a very big storm of feelings and emotions inside me, This makes me sick. They're praying for the same God for protection from Ukrainian drones, and at the same time, the other priests in the same church sanctify ballistic missiles called Satana, the Satan. They pray, they do sermons where they ask God to bless Russian weapon and send Russian troops victory. This hurts, something's gone incredibly wrong in my country. All right. Before moving to the last news, I would like to ask you a favor. As usual, I ask about this time. Please find 3 news that you like the most and comment in the comment section. Just write them down. It gives me feedback, and that's incredibly valuable because I know what to what kind of news to look for in the next news update. Perhaps you liked something the most, or you didn't like something. Let me know down in the comments. And if you have nothing to say, just drop me a line saying, Konstantin, thank you for doing a good job. I've put a lot of time into this particular report every day. It's pretty much consumes all my time. Now, the last piece of news is big. The new mobilization is on the horizon in Russia. This is my opinion, okay? And I would like to share why I think that there will be a new mobilization. That's something that I have been expecting, and now I am getting this in a physical form. Now, based on my economic and political analysis, in about 3 months or so, give or take, Vladimir Putin will find himself on a big crossroad. This is what it will look like. On one hand, there's a number of mass bankruptcies, layoffs unseen before, lack of funds in the federal budget, declining tax collection, declining export revenues, increasing emigration of citizens to other countries. All these things that I call the perfect economic storm or economic tsunami. And in other words, Putin will find himself at the helm of the Titanic that is already near the bottom of the ocean. And on the other side, human resources in the Russian army will be depleted greatly, nearly completely. Decision will have to be made by Vladimir Putin. There will be only two options: peace in Ukraine or closing Russia with another Iron Curtain and getting more people declaring new mobilization. Now, why do I think it's going to be the new Iron Curtain and the mobilization? The signs are here. I have started seeing the signs. Now, it all started with Donald Trump handed Vladimir Putin the victory by starting appeasing him instead of pushing even harder with more economic sanctions. Putin won. V-Day, he announced the world his victory on the V-Day, May 9th. It was witnessed by everyone, and in person, 27 presidents of big countries, well, big and small, came to visit him, to shake his hand, to congratulate on his victory. So Putin showed the world that he won. Then he played the role of the peacemaker. He reached out and offered to hold peace negotiations with the Ukrainians directly, omitting Donald Trump and America, okay? Basically throwing him out from the process. And of course, the peace negotiations were fabricated. And of course, no peace was reached, okay? But Putin gained the image of the peacemaker, the merciful, who gives the hand of peace to the Ukrainians. And of course, it's them who decline. It's them who don't want peace. Putin wants peace, they don't want peace. That's how Putin sold it to everyone, to Russians and to people in other countries. And now it's time for total war. It's time for a very long war. It's time to mobilize resources to, I call it, placing Russia onto military track. Seizing control of most businesses in Russia. It's going to be state-controlled economy again. Disallowing people to leave the country at will. And mobilizing, creating the new army. I have heard the most important thing here, and that's the physical science. Something that I can access, something I can touch, I can hear and see. I have seen Russian officials, different ones, and coming out and starting preparing Russian people for the mobilization. Vladimir Putin himself did that. Check this out. Right there. He ordered to increase ground forces capabilities in the shortest possible time. He acknowledged that the ground forces remain the dominant force in the military operations. So it's important to increase their capabilities as soon as possible. Everyone in Russia takes what Putin says seriously. Okay, he's not a person to be joked about. Everyone has noticed and everyone has written down his order. Ground forces capabilities. Soldiers, the infantry. Yesterday, a known Chechen commander, Abtiel Adinov, a part of Russian propaganda. He's not 100% propaganda. He's a Chechnyan, the head of the Chechnyan private army. But he is known to throw pieces of different needed information into media space in Russia. So he openly called for mobilizing 1 million Russian men. Check this out. Yes, I think that we need to declare mobilization. We need to prepare 500 to 1 million Russian men. 1 million people. They start to be trained. War. We are in the war. It's been going on. We all know that. It's going to last long time. All right. Now, this is serious stuff. I put things together, small pieces of information here and there. What do I think will happen next? We'll hear more messages from the Russian propaganda from different sides, not just Russian propaganda, but from the officials, from the authorities, from the military, from the people in the military-industrial complex, from Putin too, from all over. Russian, this is how propaganda works. They are preparing people, manipulating into believing, making them believe that the new mobilization is absolutely necessary. They will use any excuse possible. This is like a new mobilization operation, informational operation, Next, there will be an event closer to the end of summer, and most likely it will be staged, that will be used as a trigger to declare mobilization. I don't know what the event will be used, but I am pretty sure they're not going to declare mobilization out of nothing. Something must happen, so it'll be justified for Putin to declare another wave. They will use different high-tech methods of mobilizing Russian men, including the new VK Max messenger. I'm pretty sure they're going to be serving official notices through that messenger, and that's one of the reasons why they're pushing it so hard to make it mandatory starting September 1st. They will use the database, mobilization database that they have created in the last two years. I remind you, the first mobilization, There was a complete chaos of miscommunications between the government agencies, the KGB, the Border Patrol, the Federal Police, the mobilization centers, and so forth. Now it's all in one database. It's streamlined. It works very well, and there's legislation base, the laws, the new laws they made that regulate, that have made regulations much stricter. So they will definitely use that. And the most important thing, the mobilized will not be able to escape Russia like they did in October and November of 2022. The Iron Curtain is here. It's ready to be descended, and it's going to be incredibly smart, because what they're going to do is they will not completely close ability for Russians to leave the country, but they will limit it greatly. When a man gets mobilized, there's a new system and there's a new law that as soon as they put the mobilization check mark against the name and a person doesn't even know that he's mobilized, he's wanted, then they automatically close the borders for that man. Okay, so when you get served the paper or email or whatever it is, and you will try to run away, flee the country, that you won't be able to do that. They won't let you know. They will know exactly not to allow you to leave the country. The USSR had similar system. It was called the exit visa. So it was like low-tech solution of a similar kind. In order to leave the Soviet Union, Soviet Union was free. You were free to leave. Well, the problem is you had to have a special passport called external travel passport, and you had to secure a permission to leave the USSR. And of course, that was a little difficult. It was in the hands of the KGB, and they only let those out of the country who became their agents, the secret agents, but that's a different story. I think the similar system is going to be applied here in Russia. Mobilized will not be able to escape by leaving the country any longer. Folks, the jokes are over. Russia is well into the final stage of its demise drama. We're going to see the finale sooner or later, but this is the last final chapter. I will see you all soon. Carthago delenda est.